Manx Radio Podcasts, powered by Shaw.
Hello, you're listening to the Women Today podcast, which is a collection of our highlights from the past 5 days. If you want to hear the show in full, you can listen on demand at manxradio.com. And we had rather a heated debate this week about homeopathy as we prepare to become inspiring women today in support of a campaign to give the next generation of employees, especially young girls, positive role models. We were joined live by Ramsey Grammar Head teacher Annette Baker, and we also found out about a debilitating condition which has a huge impact on sufferers' lives. But first, we had a little taste of stardom in the studio.
And now, on Women Today, please welcome Simon Lynch.
Like a fool I went and stayed too long. Now I'm wondering if your love's still strong. Oh baby, here I am, signed, sealed, delivered, I'm yours. Then that time I went and said goodbye. Now I'm back and not afraid to cry. Oh baby, here I am, signed, sealed, delivered, I'm yours. Here I am, baby, signed, sealed, delivered, I'm yours. You got the future in your hands, baby.
Yes, the Manx star is with us this afternoon to talk about his time on The X Factor, his future plans, and later Simon Lynch is going to be making a very special announcement. We are looking forward to that. But Simon, are you sick of talking about The X Factor already?
No, I think just elongate the 15 minutes as long as possible. It's great. No, I like talking about The X Factor. It's good. It's been a really positive experience. So,
well, we thought, for those who might be unfamiliar with the show and therefore maybe unfamiliar with you, that we would put together a piece that we're calling Simon's X Factor Journey.
Well, first up for Simon was a small intimate audition in front of Simon Cowell, Cheryl, Rita Ora and Nick Grimshaw. Oh, and a rather large audience.
Hi, what's your name?
I'm Simon.
How are you?
I was fine until I see everyone.
Don't be scared, everyone's nice in here. How old are you, Simon?
23.
And where are you from?
I'm from a little place called the Isle of Man.
Is it like the Isle of Wight?
What?
Is it near the Isle of Wight?
No.
And Simon took on a rather well-known Beyoncé song.
If I were a boy, even just for a day, roll out of bed in the morning and throw on what I wanted and go.
I'm going to give you your first yes.
I'm going to give you your second yes, Simon.
It's definitely a yes from me.
Simon, this is an absolute no-brainer. Got 4 yeses.
Then came boot camp and a group challenge.
I see the kids in the street, they got enough to eat. Who am I to be blind, pretending not to see their needs?
Another successful round for Simon and a successful weekend as it led to the 6-chair challenge.
Won't you hold my hand? Don't wanna walk on my own anymore. Won't you understand? 'Cause I don't wanna walk alone, 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 alone.
And finally, to judges' houses with the boys' mentor Nick Grimshaw.
You look into my eyes, I go out of my mind. I can't see anything, 'cause this love's got me blind. I can't help myself, I can't break this spell, I can't even try.
But on the results show, a place in the live finals wasn't to be.
Simon, how you feeling right now, buddy?
Do you know what? Obviously, we're all disappointed, but we've got, as a group of 6 of us, we've got very, very close. And you know what? Team Grimmy. Yeah.
Team Grimmy, indeed. Simon Lynch, how does it feel listening to that?
It's bizarre, because the first audition was months ago. It was back in June, and then everything, my life has just gone upside down and backwards and forwards, and now I don't know what I'm doing. And I've had the most incredible experience that I'm, as a walking encyclopedia of the X Factor, it's been a dream since I first started watching it. I was about 10 to be on it and be involved in it, and I have been, and it's one off the bucket list. So
how does it compare, watching it, compared to being actually in the X Factor?
The one thing that you don't see, which is one of the most, for me, significant and lovely parts of the experience, is all the assistants and the runners and the producers who you get just as close to as the other contestants, and you see them on a daily basis. They're ringing you every day, they're emailing you all the time, they're always telling you where to go, what not to do, what to say, and you get really close to them, and you never see these people on TV, but the team behind the X Factor machine is huge amounts of work and sleepless nights for them all.
Now, this wasn't actually your first attempt to get on the show, was it?
No, I auditioned in 2008. I was 16, and I went across, my parents, bless them, spent a fortune taking me back and forth to Manchester to audition, and I got to boot camp, but yeah, I think I was very, very young, very inexperienced. I'd only been singing a couple of months when I auditioned, and then it was a no, and that was not as positive an experience as this one. And then I auditioned last year in Newcastle, but that was just in front of a random producer, and they said no.
The show has become, I guess, famous is probably the wrong word, but quite well known for having contestants. They have the sad music playing in the background. They have a little bit of a sad story. I think it'd be fair to say that you came in for some criticism for almost suggesting that your sad story was the fact that you were from the Isle of Man. Do you really feel that being from here has held you back?
Absolutely not, and I stand by everything that I said at that first audition. I think I have learnt a lot performing in here over the last 12 months. I didn't really perform much before uni. Last 12 months I've improved a lot, working with different people and different groups of people, but at the end of the day, Sam Barks didn't get a lead in Les Mis by sitting on a couch in Onken, do you know what I mean, or wherever she's from. You have to, if you want to take this super seriously and be a big contender in the music industry, you do have to leave. That's not to say that the facilities and the education musically you have here doesn't help. It does, it makes you, but you do have to, take a chance.
What about for the families that maybe can't afford that? What about the families that, don't have that money to be able to just jump on the planes and be able to go over? Do they still have a chance, do you think?
It depends on how much you want that dream. Like, as in, I know people who've gone to drama school and their parents, I've heard, have had to work like several jobs to be able to afford it. And it depends how much you want it. I know people that are scraping a living in London at the minute, doing odd jobs because they're desperate for it and they want it and they believe in themselves. I fortunately was in a position where I've been working for almost 8 months by the time I auditioned for X Factor, so I paid 90% of my own way this time, and was fortunate enough the previous time I did it that my parents said, but when I first got the call to say you're on the show this time, they were, no, you were still paying off your master's degree, like, oh, what are you doing, you're getting a nice marketing job down in town and then now you're off trying to be a pop star again. So, but it just depends, doesn't it?
You keep talking about following the dream, so what is your ultimate dream, Simon?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting point. I came in for a lot of flack after saying, oh, talking in cliches, dream this, dream that. But you know what? This has never been a realistic job opportunity, doing the singing thing, because I've always been quite sensible. Go to university, get a degree, get a graduate job. And so everything's still kind of up in the air. Like, obviously, the X Factor opens a lot of doors and it's an incredible platform. Theatre's always been a huge passion of mine. If you can get a foot in the door in the theatre world, that'd be great. So if anyone's listening and they want to give a gala job, then call me.
Now, a couple of minutes ago, you called yourself, and I quote, a walking X Factor encyclopedia. Okay,
yeah.
I just want to test that.
Oh, all
right.
Okay.
How many judges have there been since it started?
All right. Okay. Simon Cowell, Sharon Osbourne, Lou Walsh, Danny Minogue came in, Cheryl Cole came in, Brian Friedman was in for a little bit, wasn't he? And then got booted off. Then Talisa, Gary Barlow, Mel B, Kelly Rowland, Nicole Scherzinger, Nick Grimshaw, Rita Ora.
How many's that?
Oh, I lost count. I named
12.
Was there 12?
It was 12.
And there's
correct.
all your guest judges as well.
There you go. All right, you got that one right.
Yeah.
When was the 6-chair challenge introduced?
Ooh.
Come on, Simon. Come on.
2013.
Oh, got it right.
Oh, was it right?
Oh, yeah.
And who's your favourite contestant that there's ever been?
You can't say yourself, Simon.
Damn. Maybe, actually, Little Mix.
Wrong, it was the Cheeky Girls. Anyway, you didn't make it through to the live shows. What is it like, really, to get so near and yet so far?
Actually, I was okay with it. I was very at peace. I had a feeling which way the top 3 would go, and I was correct. Yeah, obviously it is disappointing, but I think oh god, it sounds like I'm telling a lie, but the boys category got on so well, the top 6, even when Mason came back, and I didn't actually know Mason at all, but it was so nice to spend the time that we did together, and whoever would have got through out of that 6, there was no hard feelings at all. Everyone really got on, we really bonded, and I wasn't annoyed that Che got in over me or Sean got through. Like, I was so happy for them, so happy.
There are some people who are going to think that shows like this are just that shortcut to fame rather than honing your craft through sheer hard work. What's your opinion on that?
I think that for people like myself who come from places like the Isle of Man, where there is a very limited music industry, it's great because I don't know about you, I don't know anyone in the music industry, I don't have any contacts, and so on the one hand, you can see it as a shortcut to fame. On the other hand, you can see it as a door opening 1,000 other doors with 1,000 other names that you can network. And that was one of the things I went in to do, was also to network, because I like the music industry. I like how ruthless it is. I like how it's dynamic and innovative and constantly changing it is. And I picked up a few telephone numbers and a few names along the way. And yeah, so...
And what about image, though, Simon? Because with your image, you know, the music industry, it's all about, I think, showing as much of your body as you can, but you're actually quite covered up and, you know, your average guy you see on the street.
Yeah, I mean, you're comparing me to Sean Miley Moore, who obviously...
Well, maybe you're wearing a woolly jumper today.
I am.
I don't know about the heels you've got on, though.
I know, yeah. My boss wasn't impressed. Yeah, I don't know. It depends. I think the music industry obviously is quite image obsessed, but I think it has to be, because look at the people who buy most albums, and I'm sure who sells most albums, like it's One Direction probably, and who buys the albums, it's young girls, and so the young girls are going to like, you know, the attractive boys, maybe the bad boys, and so yeah, I see it. But then you've got people like Sam Smith and your Meghan Trainors who aren't your, I don't know, don't look like a conventional pop star, but they've done it.
You must get recognised now when you're out and about down Strand Street. What has the general reaction from people over here been to you since you've come back?
Really overwhelming. I didn't go on the show. I went on the show, and I thought my number one rule, but of everything else, is don't embarrass yourself. I was not going to be forced into any awkward situations, and I made sure I didn't allow myself to be in any horrible interviews, and I set out also to represent the Isle of Man in a good light, because we don't necessarily, we're not always in the press, and so I thought, do you know what, I'm going to make sure that we come off really well, and I think I did, and the reaction from everyone over here has been so positive, and they've said, you've really represented the island well, we're really proud of you, and I can't ask for more.
Can you imagine living with a condition that affects every aspect of your life, socially, financially, your friendships, your family, the things that most of us take for granted on a daily basis? Well, that's how one of our guests this afternoon describes her life. Jill Merrick is 46 and in 2008 was told she had fibromyalgia. Now, Jill, you had been suffering for a number of years, and we'll be talking more about the symptoms in a moment, but I wondered how it felt to finally have that diagnosis back 7 years ago.
I felt relieved that, you know, that when I was having the problems, I didn't think at the time that anybody was listening to me. And then to actually get a diagnosis, then that's when it's like a jigsaw, you start putting the pieces together. And when I finally got told what I had, I was like, I'm not going crazy. I have got ill. I'm not... Because sometimes people will say you're a hypochondriac because there's many different elements to fibromyalgia. So, of course, you're constantly at the doctors with illness after illness after illness. And when I got that diagnosis, I just was over the moon.
Well, we're also joined today by Bev Beacon. And, Bev, you were diagnosed a year and a half ago. How long had you been experiencing symptoms, problems, things that had been affecting your life?
Without actually knowing it, it was probably quite a few years. But you don't... It's like a jigsaw. You get one thing and you're treated for that, and then a bit later you get something else, and then you get something else. And for me, it was only when I started getting really bad muscle pain in the upper half of my body, but not having done anything to actually cause it. So I would go to bed, get up in the morning, couldn't move, couldn't roll over, couldn't get myself up to get dressed, but couldn't think what I had done to cause that. So that was really when I started thinking what can be wrong. But luckily for me, my mum has it. So I would be talking to her on the phone or visiting, and she would be saying, well, you know, you really sound like you've got the same as me. So then I went to the doctor, suggested it, and she actually said, right, OK, yeah, I agree. She looked at my history and she said, I agree with you. Now let's try and treat it.
So is there a definite test which says, yes, you have fibromyalgia, or is it just piecing together all the symptoms that you have experienced?
I think Jill has mentioned that there's a test with pressure points on the body, but that's not how I was diagnosed. Mine was more going over my history and then it culminating in the pain. But I do think there is a test, isn't there?
There is about 18 pressure points that you have on your body. If you've got more than 11 out of the 18, then that's pretty much... And then the doctor's going through your medical history and looking at what illnesses and the problems that you've had. Then they actually come up with a diagnosis of having fibromyalgia, because people have this multiple problems with themselves. But then when you go on, they refer you to a consultant over one issue, and then you get referred to another consultant with another issue. But then the test results would come back negative. But you would actually have the symptoms, you go through the motions, but you didn't actually have these conditions. And doctors and consultants would be sitting there scratching their heads going, what's going on here? And then obviously with me being in such severe pain on a day-to-day basis, like Beverly said, not being able to get out of bed, not being able to get dressed, not being able to have a drink or lift a cup of coffee up, or not being able to feed yourself because you were so weak and you were so tired. There was times where I actually thought at the beginning that I was dying. I thought, this is it, this is the end. And obviously the impact that it has on the family, with the children, your husband, friends, you know, it has such a massive impact on you, and it affects so much. But there is no defined evidence to say that you've actually got this condition. It's just basically the consultant. I got referred to the rheumatologist because of the volume of pain that I was in at the time, and obviously having these problems and going through the motions with these illnesses and these conditions, I got referred to the rheumatologist. And it is actually the rheumatologist that can diagnose you with this condition.
So when we're talking about fibromyalgia then, I just wonder how you actually define what exactly it is and the cause that it has on your body. What effect does it actually have on you physically?
Some days you get up and you can't remember what you're doing or how you get into this to this spot. Even just something as simple as making a cup of tea can be difficult in just actually trying to process a day-to-day life. And obviously living in pain and not being able to do the things that you used to do, like go to work or you have a social life, that's gone out the window. Your family, your friends, you know, it has a major impact because friends don't understand. All they've seen is you going in and out of doctors for years, complaining of this, complaining of that, and eventually they kind of, you know, they get fed up of listening to it.
And
So you become isolated.
Can you, Jill, pinpoint exactly when you think this started? Is it something that does have a definite start point, or does it just gradually evolve?
I don't know how it started. I mean, initially I was diagnosed with endometriosis, and for 15 years I've been in and out of hospital, surgery after surgery, and then obviously resulting in me having a hysterectomy at one point. After I'd had that hysterectomy done, I never recovered. I didn't know what was wrong with me. It was as if somebody had just hit me with a truck, not being able to do the things of day-to-day life that you would do. And that's when I started asking questions, what's going on with me? And you become depressed because people don't understand, and you go into doctors and then you're banging your head thinking, why is nobody listening to me? And then when you finally get that diagnosis, it starts to, like I said before, you have a jigsaw effect. You start putting the pieces together and you're looking at the pieces, and then you think, yeah, I can relate to this and I can relate to that, and now I understand more about the condition. But at first it's just a diagnosis, so you get the diagnosis and it's just a case of taking medication and seeing which best suits you.
And how well is that medication working for you, Jill?
At the moment I can just about cope and deal with, but most days I seem to be finding now, for the last 18 months, I'm spending more and more time in bed. More and more problems are arising medically, and obviously it does have this big effect on my life. I spend most of my time in bed. Like today I got up this morning and I was so tired this morning. I slept through an alarm and I should have been at the nurse to get my routine bloods done. But I just slept through it. In fact, the whole family did. But I couldn't make it. It's taken me all morning just to get ready to get here to this point. And even now I'm still tired. My body's still trying to wake up, and it just doesn't seem to want to get to that point where you can just feel refreshed.
Bev, just listening to Jill talking about the fact that, you know, the frustration of never really feeling well, have you felt much better since you were officially diagnosed?
I found the diagnosis to be a bit of an anticlimax, because I thought, oh yay, I know now what's wrong with me. But then that was it. It was a bit flat. I was hoping that then I would get something and I would feel wonderful and everything would go away. And it's not been the case. So it felt a little bit of a letdown, if that makes any sense. But luckily at the moment the medicines are working for me, so I'm okay, just about.
A couple of months ago, I was at a networking event organised by Lancaster University for former students, and I bumped into my old German teacher, old as in former, obviously, who was not only a Lancaster Uni graduate, but also embarking on a really, really interesting scheme about inspiring future generations of employees, especially young women. Annette Baker, guten Tag.
Guten Tag.
See, haven't lost it.
Brilliant.
Yeah, we're all a little bit giddy, I think, having a teacher in the room, because you're...
They're being very, very naughty.
Yes, I know.
Can you give me a detention?
Joe, can you write lines?
Yeah, just.
Annette, you did French and German at Lancaster, so have you always had a knack for languages? Was that always what you wanted to do?
I think so. It was also influenced by the fact that my mum is German, and I grew up with the sound of that language in particular in my life. And I've just always been really interested in finding out more about both countries, and particularly Germany, which is quite an enigmatic country for many and quite a controversial one for lots of others. And I've always been really fascinated just to find out more about it, to get behind the reality behind the myth and behind the picture of the country, sometimes expounded in the media. So that really drove my choice of subjects, I suppose, at university. And the languages are just fantastic in their own right. And learn languages, you people out there.
So were you bilingual when you grew up? I can't even speak English today.
Oh, unfortunately not. It was a great advantage having a mother who was a native speaker, because I could always speak German at home with mum, and still do. But unfortunately, like everybody else, I went to school and learned it the hard way. I think definitely having the sound of the language in my ear that made it very much easier to learn. And as I say, the advantage of having somebody who you could easily converse with all the time was great.
When did your mum leave Germany?
She left, when was it? She's told me this so many times, and she'd be so annoyed that I can't remember the year, but it was, she was a child in the war. She was born in 1932, so obviously the war broke out in 1939. It was a difficult time in Germany. She left Germany, I've recalled now, in 1950s, 1952, 53. And it was a difficult place to grow up in at the time. I mean, the place was flattened. They call it the 0 hour of German history, 1945, and you can imagine after all the traumas of the Second World War, it was a very difficult place to establish yourself as a young person. So she decided to get out and travel the world, and she got as far as England, met my dad, and stayed in the UK ever since.
Well, Annette, we're going to be talking about inspiring women a little bit later. Who was it that inspired you growing up?
Gosh, what a question. I'd have to say, thinking about it, my mum. She's in many ways always been my inspiration, from choosing to take German at university, from speaking German, from travelling to the country, finding out more about it, and for also giving me a sense of the importance of education. I was the first in my family to go to university, and from my mum it was always expected. I grew up, as well as listening to this wonderful person with a German accent, who, I have to say, she gets the mickey taken out of her by my sons for the accent occasionally, but if they could speak German as well as she speaks English, I'm sure they wouldn't do it. But it was always expected of me that I would go to university, and she never wavered from that vision. And so, yes, Mum, thank you.
Well, education was obviously so important to you that that's what you wanted to do for a career, and you started teaching in Douglas in 1984. Teaching, I guess, the essence of that is all about inspiring youngsters. Well, would you say that's still the linchpin of that profession?
Absolutely. You go into teaching really with, I think all teachers would admit, a desire to change the world for the better in some way, and to help young people to make choices in their life which will make the world a better place. You've got to be an idealist to a certain extent, being a teacher, and I don't think that ever changes. And working with younger teachers now, I still recognise those kinds of signs and traits of a sense of vocation in people, which I felt very strongly in 1984, and still do. The job has changed. The challenges essentially remain the same of getting the best out of young people, and of being passionately devoted, really, to doing the best by them.
You said the job's changed. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, I speak to teachers that I know, and they seem to say with a heavy heart that it's really all about the paperwork these days.
Well, that's why I'm in a really fortunate position as head teacher now to try to address some of those issues. There is no doubt accountability is a key part of our job, and so it should be, because we are accountable to the public, we're accountable to everybody who we serve. However, the key reason that people came into the job was to make a difference, because they were passionate about the subject that they teach, essentially. And so the more that we can keep a focus on the teaching and learning side of it, and the joy that brings both to teachers and to learners, the better the job is. We can't be naive and say paperwork doesn't have a part in it, because that has to be part of the role. But I think as head teacher, certainly, I'm very clear that the job is about inspiring people with a love of subjects and a love of learning. And if we can keep the paperwork to a minimum, all the better.
You mentioned your 3 sons. You've also got a stepdaughter as well. They're all grown up and in work themselves now. How difficult would you say it was for you and for them having a teacher as a parent?
You'd probably have to ask them how they felt about it. They, to be quite honest, none of them complained about me being in the school, so I suppose that's a sort of negative, positive, as it were.
You taught them, did you?
I did. I taught all except Michael. Michael's my youngest and somehow escaped. Disappointingly, he didn't do German for GCSE, so he escaped being in my class, but I taught all the other 3. And each one of them posed slightly different challenges, and were slightly different in their response to me in the school. I think My middle son Phil was always very comfortable with me as being in the school, and although he always called me Miss, my eldest son occasionally called me Mum, and Mike just ignored me. But
did you feel under pressure to be harder on them because they were yours?
I think I was very conscious of the fact that I couldn't show them any favouritism, because I treat, and this sounds a bit twee, but I think it is. I think it is true, and I'm being true to myself in saying this, that all of the children in the school are my children, and I like to think that every single child that I interact with or have anything to do with will get the same service as my own children get. So to that extent, having my own children in the class was a good measure of that, because I think that as a teacher and as a head teacher now, the education which we provide has got to be good enough for my own children, and I can quite honestly say hand in heart that I work hard every day to make sure that it is, because I've had the experience of teaching my own children. I know how high my expectations of education always were for them.
Well, Annette Baker, thank you so much for being our guest this afternoon. We'll try and behave from now on.
I don't think there's any chance of that.
How rude. We've also had an email from Laura who says, can you give my friend Hannah Foreman a shout out? She misses home and is listening all the way from New York for some Manx goodness.
Oh, is that a shout out? Is that how you do a shout out? I've never known how you do a shout out.
Hi. That's the shout out.
Hello.
Hello, Hannah.
Hey.
Is that a New York
someone in New York, aren't we? Yeah. I nearly said good eye. Yeah, okay, whatever.
Okay.
She
Sorry,
just switched off.
Hannah. Yeah, never mind. You're listening to Women Today on Manx Radio. It's 2:20, and the controversial practice of homeopathy is in the news today. Is there ever a place for alternative medicine in hospitals or GP surgeries? There is the UK news story that goes a little something like this.
The NHS is considering a ban on homeopathy prescriptions. The technique uses highly diluted substances, but experts say there's no scientific evidence it works. In 2010, a UK government-backed report said that the remedies were underpinned by principles which are scientifically implausible. Ministers say they'll consult on the matter.
Well, the controversial practice is based on the principle that like cures like, but critics say patients are being given useless sugar pills. The Faculty of Homeopathy, though, says the therapy has profound effects and patients back it. Simon Singh, who's the founder of the Good Thinking Society, which is campaigning for homeopathy to be blacklisted, says given the finite resources of the NHS, any spending on homeopathy is utterly unjustifiable. The money spent on these disproven remedies can be far better spent on treatments that offer real benefits to patients. But Dr. Helen Beaumont, who's a GP and the president of the Faculty of Homeopathy, says other drugs such as SSRIs for depression would be a better target for saving money, as homeopathic pills had a, and she quotes, profound effect on patients.
We've had a comment from the Department of Health here on the Isle of Man when we asked them if this is a similar situation on the Isle of Man as it is in the UK, and we've had a response saying the Isle of Man is indeed bound by the same rules as the UK on complementary and alternative medicines. The web pages of the Isle of Man Clinical Recommendations Committee, which advises the Department of Health and Social Care on such matters, includes a policy to the effect that complementary and alternative therapies should generally be treated as low priority unless they are currently provided as part of an established pathway of care, because there is insufficient quality evidence to demonstrate their clinical and cost effectiveness.
So what do you think then? Is there ever a place for alternative medicine in hospitals or GP surgeries? Let us know. Women Today at manxradio.com. You can text 166 177 or go to the Women Today Facebook page. On Twitter, it's at MR Women Today, and we'll be talking about that just after this.
Women Today, brought to you by citywing.com for your next flight away.
2:25, and we're talking about whether or not there's ever a place for alternative medicine in hospital or GP surgeries. And as I suspected, it has provoked something of a debate. Let's just get our views on this first of all. Kate, where do you stand on homeopathy and the like?
Yeah, I'm probably not a fan. I mean, I'm not completely cynical about them, because I guess looking back in history, all medicine starts as an alternative. But I just think you need scientific proof. And I don't know a lot about homeopathy, but from what I have read and experienced, there doesn't seem to be that scientific background to my eyes. And so I am sceptical about it, because I just worry that you are giving people in very vulnerable positions who are incredibly ill a false hope. And I don't think that's good.
Can I comment on what Kate just said?
Kate Berquist, just tell me, first of all, that what you studied.
I did my degree in public health,
And I just wanted to say to Kate, I suppose where you're talking about research and you want scientific research before you probably can believe in complementary therapy, but there is no research, there's not enough. If they don't invest in research, how will we ever get the results and the scientific facts to say, yeah, it does work?
I think it's really interesting what you said there as complementary medicine or complementary therapy, and I really take that as complementary to medicine, to what I do see scientific proof in, and I don't have a problem with people doing it as a kind of another option. It's just the idea of it being put across as the only alternative.
Do you know that one of the things I've got a real issue with, and I suppose I should say that I have had personal experience of using homeopathy, and for me I have found it helpful. What I really struggle with is that people who are against it absolutely shove their opinion down their throat, and they just say that there is no other alternative. It's just science, it's science, it's science. That's all I ever get.
Is that what I just did?
Science is not always correct.
Yeah, I've got a pretty serious one on this because I used it myself when I first suffered with depression. I straight away went to St John's Wort because I didn't want to go to looking at taking any antidepressants. It wasn't an option for me at that stage, and I really wanted something natural to help me, to put natural into my body. And I've read a lot about it, and I have to say, I don't feel it was effective because then, I did go through a stage where antidepressants need to come in. However, I've used it with the kids for arnica, for bruising. It definitely helps, definitely. But I think there's a time and place for medicine, and I do see that homeopathy has a place too. But, until you've used it, and until there has been a valid reason for you to be pro or against, you can't really comment on it, I don't believe.
I think I agree with that. And I do agree with what you said, Kate. I would in no way, shape or form say, actually, let's plough all NHS funding towards this. Absolutely, it needs to be complementary. But I do think that there can't be thousands of people who use it and have had positive effects from it. They can't all be wrong.
But I am absolutely fascinated, I think I've said on this show before, by the placebo effect and how effective and powerful placebo effect is. But let me finish my sentence, Miss Espy. But I think the fact is that a placebo works even when you know it's a placebo. That's how powerful it is. And if it's a placebo and it works, I have no problem with it being a placebo. Just admit that it's a placebo.
Why do I have such a problem getting an appointment with my homeopath?
Because people are desperate.
I don't think they're desperate.
I think if you are vulnerable and ill and looking for any support or any help that you can, you are vulnerable.
You don't just go to a homeopath because you're desperate. You go also because of the appointment that they give you and the time, and they look at everything around you, everything, and they give you so much more time than a doctor ever would.
I think that's a real key point. It's not just generally a 10-minute slot. It is looking at you holistically, looking at various aspects of your life. And I guess a lot of it is the time that you can have then to sort of talk about yourself, which you don't get conventionally.
And that's brilliant. I'm not discrediting having that time and that attention, but I just don't agree that it should be used in the NHS. That is an alternative, and you can seek that alternative yourself.
What about something like acupuncture then? How do you feel about that?
Again, it's this. I have the same thing. If it works for you, fantastic. Anything that works is brilliant, but it shouldn't be prescribed because there isn't enough, in my opinion, evidence that I have seen to back it up.
But physiotherapy has.
Yeah, because there is science behind it.
See, look, there it is.
But science. But then you say you get annoyed by people saying, "Well, science." I get annoyed by people saying, "Oh, but if you just need to believe it works. You believe because it's belief."
But if it works, what does it matter?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what I just said.
What she said.
I just said it. I just said that too, and that's my point. If it works, fantastic. Go for it. Do it. Whatever works for you. You don't need it in the NHS.
I was going to mention money and funding as well, but you did just make that point. You say you can't get an appointment with your homeopath, but they are expensive and they throw too much money at the biomedical model, and you don't agree, Kate, that they should put any money towards that, do you?
I think money should go towards research.
Yeah,
before money goes towards treatment.
That was going to be my next comment. That's where the money should go, to the research.
Thelma, do you believe in homeopathy?
I can't say if I'm perfectly honest, I've given it much thought. I've certainly not been involved in having any. I've always been perfectly happy with... I've always been perfectly happy with the treatment I've got from the doctors, and I've been extremely fortunate. I've always been perfectly well. So
a good cup of tea solves it all, doesn't it, Thelma?
It does, Kate.
So we've had some interesting comments on this one, Kate.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say when you mention homeopathy, people instantly are on either side of this argument. Yeah. Susie says, for those whose conditions are complex and incurable, all sorts of claims are put out there that alternative, often costly remedies are the answer. There is the placebo effect, which can't be denied, but I worry that hopes are raised and dashed by practitioners who sell unlicensed, untested remedies. Christine says homeopathy is a load of and has been proved such in many scientific studies. And there's been quite a debate between some of our Facebook friends. Simone started it saying, and homeopathy is the only alternative way to heal. But of course, we will deny all the other ways people have treated and healed themselves for thousands of years, simply because a human in a white lab coat has not approved it. Whereas Dan says alternative medicine is a more palatable way of saying products or methods with a claimed health benefit unproven by science. If they were efficacious in any appreciable way, they would be adopted as mainstream medicine and used as such, and it goes on.
Keep your thoughts coming in. Women Today at manxradio.com. You can text 166 177. Go to Facebook, have a wee look at some of the comments there if you dare. Or you can also comment on Twitter. It's at MR Women Today. 28 minutes to 3. Now let's just change the subject for a moment, because there's a chance to have a look around some of the island's art studios and start your handcrafted Christmas shopping later this month, because it's the third Christmas in the Yard event, and Potter, Katie Mitchell and Pinewood Studio are going to be opening their doors to passers-by. It's all taking place on November the 28th and 29th, and I've been up to Kirkmichael to get a little preview. Now, Katie, you were on Women Today a little while ago, and you did invite us to come down to your studio, so here I am. It's lovely. And you're going to be opening up just before Christmas, aren't you? Tell me what's happening.
Yes, so we'll be having an open weekend the last weekend of November. We call it Christmas in the Yard, so it's sort of our little pre-Christmas celebration. So I'll have my studio open with all of my Christmas wares ready to sell, and Pinewood Studio furniture will be open as well, and they'll have lots of lovely new pieces. And we make it lovely and festive, so we will make mulled wine and spiced apple juice and lovely festive treats. So it's a nice way to start your Christmas shopping.
Well, I just walked into your studio with my 2-year-old, and I was instantly terrified that she was going to run round and break everything. I mean, you must get a little bit nervous of people coming into your space.
No, people tend to be on their best behaviour when they come in. Touch wood, hope I'm not jinxing myself now. There haven't been any breakage in here as yet, but I've probably ruined that now.
I'm sitting very still today. So just tell me what you're working on at the moment.
I am making some of the pots that hopefully you'll be able to buy during the Christmas in the Yard event. So yes, deep into Christmas preparation at the moment. So the range I'm making for Christmas is the small ramekins, the small dishes, and wine cups. So everything will have a little festive touch of gold on them, and lots of little robins. Some people may have seen the robins I've done in my work this year. I'm also introducing some wren and hare patterns as well, which I think will be really lovely for the Christmas season.
It's really fascinating seeing your workspace, because you've got a drawing pad in front of you there with a lot of words and sort of doodles on it. I mean, is that how you do your design process? Do thoughts just pop into your head and you kind of have to scribble them down?
Yeah, I carry a notepad with me most of the time. If you see me in a cafe or a pub, I'm probably there like with my notepad writing something down furiously before I forget it. And then designs can take a few months to kind of pull together and experiment. I tend to draw everything before it ends up on my work as something ready to sell. It takes quite a while to develop things.
And can you talk us around your studio? Because it all happens in here, does it?
It does. Everything happens in this little space. So it's a small room. It's only about 9 by 9 foot. So I've got my wheel over there under the window, so that's where all the pots are made. So everything I make is wheel thrown in a very traditional way. Got the workbench here next to us, so all the in-between processes happen here. So at the moment I'm drawing and painting. Next week it will all be cleared off and I'll be preparing clay on it, and then I'll be glazing on it. And then behind us more shelves that are stacked full of pots. And then I've got my kiln here in the opposite corner. And that's firing most nights at the moment to kind of get through the workload. And then the sink, which is then the washboard stacked up full of pots that need to be wrapped up for another order. And then there's lots of pots in the window as well on display. And then I've got display boards up with sort of newspaper articles and lists of things I need to be making and little bits of inspiration. So it's a really nice place to work. It's all very compact.
But it's absolutely you, isn't it? And I think that's what's so lovely about this space, and seeing, I don't know, sort of getting a glimpse inside it. How much pressure do you feel in the run up to Christmas? Because, you know, like you say, you've got these orders sort of stacking up. I mean, I just don't think I could deal with that pressure.
There is pressure, but most of it is self-inflicted. My stockists are all very good-natured. So far, none of them have sort of been hassling me saying, "Where are the pots? We need the pots now." Everybody understands that it's a very long, slow process when you're working with clay, and that there are quite a lot of pitfalls. I mean, especially in winter, you know, with cooler, wetter temperatures, everything takes a lot longer to dry, so the timelines get stretched by that as well. So it's a good kind of pressure. It's, you know, certainly wonderful to be busy and to have a full order book for Christmas.
And do you ever have days where you just think, I'm not feeling it? Do you know what? I'm throwing this pot around the wheel and it's just not happening.
Yes, there are fewer and fewer of those days now, which is nice. But yeah, there are certainly some days, maybe if I haven't had a good night's sleep, then yeah, it gets a bit frustrating on the wheel and just smush it immediately. I'm kind of learned over the years to tell quickly if it's going to be a bad pot and to just get rid of it and move on, because there's just no point in like spending 10 minutes making something that's still bad.
And do you make all your family and friends Christmas presents?
The ones that will appreciate it, yes. I don't force them upon everyone, because, you know, it's not going to be everyone's taste. I don't want to be that person who always inflicts the handmade gifts on their friends and family. So there are certain people that I know do appreciate it.
And just thinking about the Christmas event, it's a great chance for people who have maybe never seen or heard about your work before, just to come and have a sneaky peek. And I bet you get some quite interesting questions. Any potential potters come and see you for some tips?
Occasionally, yeah, I get a few people that are sort of trying it out and want to know, you know, what kind of clay to use or colours, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's really lovely to be able to welcome people in here, because it's sort of it's got a bit of mystery to it, I think, I think it's people really find it interesting to learn how it's made, where it was made, you know, why I do certain things. And they kind of learn that there's a lot more to the process than they might have originally thought.
Do you let people have a go?
It's a bit messy, I'm afraid. As you can see, it's a really small space. And for the open weekend events, it all gets cleaned up and sort of it becomes more of a showroom than a studio. So I do get the occasional people going, "Oh, we have to go on the wheel." I'm like, "Oh, but I've cleaned it. It's so nice and clean. Don't make me mess it up again."
I'm guessing that's the answer I'd get if I asked to have a go. Look, Katie, thank you so much for letting me have a look round. And I didn't even mention the ghost theme once.
Oh, well done. Well done. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, you go me. Now, that open event is going to be at Lower Bishop Court Farm on the 28th or 29th of November. You'd be more than welcome there between 2 and 6 p.m, and you can find out more information by searching Christmas in the Yard on Facebook. Now, we've been talking about whether or not there's ever a place for alternative medicine in hospitals or GP surgeries. Elaine says, "I believe that acupuncture is cheaper and more effective than some prescribed drugs and can help with drug and alcohol problems." And another text says, "I agree with Kate Holland." Is that your number, Kate? Now, this afternoon, we are going to be talking about a charity calendar which is going to raise money for the Women's Refuge here in the Isle of Man. Now, in the past year, 20 women and 32 children have escaped domestic violence here by going to the refuge. And the refuge is never empty. It is always supporting women and possibly their children who've been suffering from some form of domestic abuse. Well, to tell us more about how the refuge actually works, we're joined by Thelma Lomax, who works on the refuge committee. Thelma, what exactly does the refuge provide?
Well, the refuge provides a safe house for people who are suffering from domestic violence, and they can come to us. They first of all would telephone our helpline, and then they would be contacted by one of our volunteers who would talk to them, make sure that it was domestic violence and it wasn't just housing problems or something like that, and then they would meet them and bring them into the refuge. Now, the refuge is a very, very nice house that over the years we have managed to make very, very comfortable. Everybody has their own room with their own key, so that they can feel if they want to be private or they can go and do that. It has a lovely lounge, big playroom, 5 bedrooms, a big bathroom and a shower room, so and a very large kitchen plus dining room. So although they have to share those facilities, they do have their own bedrooms, and they can, their rooms they have their own keys, but they have to share the rest of the facilities. Now, the people who come in, we like them to feel it is their home when they are there. So we have special locks on the doors, and any of us, even from the committee or the volunteers or anyone who actually goes in to see anyone, we will always put the appropriate number in the door, ring the bell, because we feel very strongly that you don't walk into somebody's house unannounced, and therefore if we want them to feel it's their home, we shouldn't do that either.
Now, Thelma, you said it's for people who are suffering from domestic violence. Does that always have to be physical?
Oh, absolutely not. There is all sorts of domestic violence, and it's yes, there is physical, of course there is. There's stress-related, there's sexual, there's all types of violence. People do have the opinion that everybody who comes in has got either a broken arm or a black eye or something like that. Just not true. There are different types, but they're all still as upsetting as the other.
And at what point would a woman typically get in touch with the refuge? Because I'm assuming it's when they really feel that they have no other option.
Yes. Some people think that, nobody these days will put up with any sort of trouble at home, and they ring up and they'll come in to get out of the way. Completely untrue. People will put up with domestic violence for various reasons for years. And then either it'll just got too much, or perhaps the children are a bit older, or or perhaps they've seen an advertisement and they realise that there is a way out, and then they will contact us. I do stress that I personally think that these ladies are very, very brave, because if you think about it, to pick the phone up to us and ask, can you come in? You're coming to a house you don't know what the facilities are, you have no idea what it's like. You're giving up your home, you're giving up, at that stage, maybe not in the end, you're giving up your home, you're giving up your friends from round about. So you really have got to the end of your tether.
How many women can you have in the refuge at any one time?
Well, we have 5 bedrooms. And it all depends how many children they have, really, So, yeah, we it's rare that we have all 5 with people in, and we try not to because of emergencies. The police may bring us someone, social services may bring us someone at the last minute. So we don't want to have nowhere for them. But, basically 2 or 3 rooms on a regular basis.
Now, the refuge is run by volunteers, and interestingly, you're not trained counsellors, are you? I mean, what is the essence of the work that you are providing then?
Well, no, we're not trained counsellors, and we make that very, very clear. But we work very, very closely with Relate, the Children's Centre, the police, victim support, and the local doctors, the schools. We have all the contacts for the ladies, the housing division. We have all the contacts for the ladies to go to, and our volunteers will sit and talk for hours. They're lovely, lovely people, and they will sit and talk for hours to people, but we make it very clear, and I think it's most important that this is always done in everything. Don't take on more than what you are qualified to do. But we have all the contacts that we can send them to qualified people to get help, and we do.
Now, we can't talk about exactly where the refuge is.
No.
And I just wonder then how you let these women, these vulnerable women who are in these various positions, know that you are there when you have to keep a level of secrecy.
Well, on the Isle of Man, that's difficult, particularly as so many people know so many people. And just one little instance we have to do is that we can't let the children play out at the front because of cars and other people going past. We have got a lovely back that we've made as a playground for them. But that's just one little instance that you can't. We do ask the ladies, and we do stress that please don't tell anyone when you've been in. We're not stupid, and we know they must say. Sometimes the odd person must say something, or tell another member of family who may say, oh, they looked after my daughter, or something like that. But generally, we've been exceedingly fortunate in people not finding out where it is.
So how long can a woman stay then?
It all depends on the circumstances, and everybody is different. They can stay, some stay days, weeks, others stay months. Now, we never put a restriction on how long they can stay. We actually say when they start getting back on their feet, they must try and look for somewhere else, because we cannot offer full-time accommodation. It's only temporary. But temporary doesn't mean a week or two. Temporary can mean we've just got a lady fixed up that's been with us 9 months, but hers was a bad case and she needed that time before she could get back on her feet. So it just depends. You can't say, oh, you can come in for a week. You don't know.
And when a woman comes in, they are supported and they go to leave, where would they typically go?
Oh, very difficult, that. Some, not as many as we would like, but some do get injunctions and get the house back, that the husband or partner can't go near them there. We help them via various housing associations and the local councils. We give them letters to say they're in with us, and that helps them to get up the housing ladder better. So we have contacts with the housing associations, and we do help them to get that. Some people manage to get housing or go and live with some family member or something like that. All sorts of different things, but we do our best. But we expect them also to try to find somewhere. You know, they don't. We will put them in the right position to go and talk to people and the right people to talk to, but they must make the effort themselves to try to move on. But we never put anybody out because they couldn't find anywhere.
But Thelma, some of the women who you see, and you've heard what I can only imagine sometimes are really distressing stories, some of them go back.
Oh yes, I'm afraid so. Yes, and that is nothing we can do anything about, and that would be wrong for us to tell them not to, because that is their choice. I have to say that in the past, if they come back to us a second time, they will let us help them. But many go back after the first stay with us. It's difficult to say, and people don't always understand this, but, you know, in lots of these cases, the husband does not harm the children. Husband or partner, I keep forgetting that, does not harm the children. So it's very difficult as a mother when the children are wanting to go back, they're wanting to see the dad, they're wanting their friends, they're wanting the rooms, the toys. The poor woman is torn, isn't she? You know, you're torn between, am I upsetting my children? Should I put up with this? And that's a lot of the reason they go back. But then, as I say, if they come again, the majority of them do let us help them.
Thelma, I think we should make the point that, of course, domestic abuse goes the other way as well. It's not always a man abusing a woman. It can be a woman abusing a man abusing a man, a woman abusing a woman. Why do you think it's important that it is a women's refuge?
Well, yes, of course, and we do get calls from men. I mean, percentage-wise, very few compared to the calls from women. That could be, not as it's not going on, it could be that men don't like to admit it. So, you know, you have to take that into consideration. Well, first of all, we couldn't have men in the refuge because the majority of ladies, till they get back on their feet, are afraid. So we couldn't mix. It's not something we could mix. And I think you have to accept you can only do as much as you can with the money you have available. And we were very, very fortunate in a lady, a friend of mine, buying us the house. Now, if she hadn't have been so kind as to buy the house, we would have never afforded a house like we've got. Now, if we had to start with men, and that's 20 years ago. Now, if we had to start looking after men, well, we just would not have the finance. we could not start. We couldn't, because it'd have to be a separate entity. I'm not saying we wouldn't have the staff or we couldn't get the staff to do it. We probably could, but we couldn't have we'd never get the finance.
Thanks as always to our amazing guests. And as ever, it's never too late for you to get involved. Head over to Facebook, find the Women Today Facebook page, and you can comment there, or you can follow us at MR Women Today on Twitter. And you can listen again to the full programmes on manxradio.com, or join us every weekday live from just after 2:00.
Don't sit in the slow lane. Join the fast lane right now with Shaw's all-new Superfast Plus broadband. Enjoy more bandwidth, amazing speeds and the best value on the island from just £23.95 per month. So don't be left behind. Get a piece of the high-speed action with Superfast Plus broadband from Shaw. For details, visit our stores in Douglas, Ramsey and Port Erin or click shaw.com. Love being Shaw. Terms and conditions apply.